welcoming a legend like Chris Jericho. Talk to us about what a Mimosa match is.
Get it right. Mimosa Mayhem. That's the tagline. And usually when you do that, it's some kind of a stipulation match, a gimmick match, as we say. And I wanted to do something different, didn't want to do the tried and true, strap match, last man standing match, Texas death match, Canadian frickin', wolf pack match, whatever. So I was thinking, well, what's this feud been based on? I mean, it's orange juice that he dumped on me, and then the bubbly that we kind of waterboarded him with. Of course, orange juice and champagne makes mimosa. Well, what can we do with that? So I started thinking, as ridiculous as it might sound, about the FMW exploding barbed wire death matches that Onita used to have, where someone would be like teasing falling into the barbed wire, and then they wouldn't do it, and they wouldn't do it, and finally, and falls in the barbed wire, and the bomb goes off. And I thought about that. I thought about a coffin match where you have to throw somebody into an object. And then I thought about the Royal Rumble, where all the different, skin the cat. You're almost going to touch the ground. The floor is lava, but you don't. So I thought, well, maybe we could do that with Mimosa. So I just drew a very easy sketch of what it might look like. And I sent it to Tony Khan, and he loved the concept of it. And there you go, something completely different, which it makes me laugh because some people are like, well, this is great. Others are like, well, this is going to suck. I'm like, well, let's watch it first and see what happens, because it's the first one ever. I was in the first Elimination Chamber. I was in the first Money in the Bank. I was in the first Ambrose Asylum. So you can't go back and watch examples of these matches before because they don't exist. So we have an open canvas to do something completely different and completely new for the first time ever. And in wrestling, that's very hard to say because everything's been done, but not this one.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Let me ask you too, before you joined AEW, had you seen Orange Cassidy before, and what were your initial thoughts of him? And I guess they must have changed a lot now you've worked with him, right?
Did not like him, did not respect him, thought it was stupid. And then watching him every week in AEW when we started and hearing the crowd's reaction to him, listen, there's one thing that I've learned is that over is over, and you can't explain it. But the concept of wrestling is to get over. And the best way to do that is to do something different. And that's what Orange is doing. So once I started understanding this and kind of pull my head out of my ass and go, you know what, this guy's actually pretty good. Like he's really smart to be able to pull this off, like the world's most laziest wrestler. So instead of falling down the rabbit hole of some people who can't see the genius of what he's doing, I went the other way. We can really make something of this guy. Let's put him in a spotlight with Jericho. And what I didn't expect was that we'd be doing this for 14 weeks. I'm very proud of that. I love long storytelling. That's over 3 months, 3.5 months of us working together. And every week has been something new and something exciting. So to me, that's the real secret of wrestling, and the real genius and fun of wrestling is when you can put together a long storyline and bring a guy like him and put him in the spotlight. So now he is, a legit main event star for AEW. And that was the idea.
Yeah. And you talk about long-term storytelling. I spoke to Jon Moxley a couple of months ago, and he told me how fulfilling he found the title feud that you guys had, right?
Yeah.
It was wonderful how you could collaborate, and you made it to a point where, and it's rare this actually happens because, for instance, like Drew McIntyre will face a Dolph Ziggler, and that really it's just to kind of move Drew along as the champion sometimes.
Right.
But with you and Moxley on that occasion, it was like, wow, who is going to win? And you'd faced each other in WWE. And obviously, I'm not saying this biasly, but this was the best I'd ever seen you two work together. Would you say that's because it's more fulfilling that you can have much more of an input, much like you are with Orange Cassidy?
Well, I mean, that wasn't even the same guy. I mean, Dean Ambrose doesn't even exist anymore. To me, that's almost a job guy from the past. Jon Moxley is not that guy. So, yeah, I had a pretty good feud with Dean Ambrose. Wasn't even close. Not the same guy, not the same situation. So when Moxley came to AEW, it's when he really became Moxley, when he really became what he had the potential to be, which is why I recruited him to bring him in to AEW to begin with. And I think the story that we did was, I think we started that one in mid-December, and that culminated at the end of February. Once again, 2.5 months. The story that Cody and I had started basically on October 2nd on our very first Dynamite show and went to, November. So I pride myself on long stories that always have a great payoff. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. As the heel, most of the time you lose. That's okay. But with Mox, I really enjoyed it because we basically, what happens with me now is in WWE, you get complacent that people are going to book stories for you. And all my best stuff, I always had major input in WWE, whether it be Shawn Michaels in 2008, Rey Mysterio 2009, Kevin Owens in 2016. All of those storylines were months and months and months. Now, obviously, I have input, but so do the writers, and you're working together. In AEW, there basically is no writer. There is no writers. It's up to me. And I embraced that from the moment that I started here. I've planned out big chunks of okay, who's available for me to work with? Because everybody's got their own storylines and things that are going on. And what can I do with this? So when I see a guy like Orange Cassidy, it's like, is anyone else working with Orange Cassidy? And I know the answer is no. So let me, like I said, find something that we can really sink our teeth into to make Orange as big of a name as Moxley is, as big of a name as Cody is. And to an extent, we've done that. And we've done that in front of basically no people. And Orange is very much a crowd favorite. So take the crowd away, it makes it a little harder, but it's the cards that we've been dealt. So I enjoy the long-term storytelling. I enjoy the fact that I have major input in it. And I enjoy the fact that everybody in AEW is basically on the same team working together to make stars and to make money, basically.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think one of the things I really enjoyed early on in the run was obviously the Inner Circle being born. It seemed like at one point, obviously, well, every point, they've obviously been under the learning tree with you. Sammy Guevara more closely. How do you think the last few months have affected him, and how have you tried to guide him? Because the Sasha Banks thing is one thing, but I mean, the more pressing issue, I guess, that they've turned into more feud would be what happened with Matt Hardy and the chair and stuff, which I think most people would say was overzealous, perhaps.
No, I mean, that's wrestling, man. I mean, listen, that can happen at any point in time. That's the way it goes. And obviously it was a mistake. It's something that Sammy felt bad about and Matt felt bad about, but then look what happens. It's called a happy accident. It's like when I punched Rebecca Michaels in the face. It was
Exactly.
an accident. Wasn't supposed to happen. But once you get over the emotion of what the fuck, then you realize, okay, we can make some money with this. And I think the moment that Matt Hardy came into AEW, I thought that a feud with Sammy Guevara would be perfect. I love the Inner Circle. I love the fact that we all had different ideas of who's going to be in it. And the first choices, with the exception of one or two of the guys, or maybe one of the guys, was not the guys that we ended up having. But after the first night, when I saw a picture of us, I'm like, this looks cool.
It did.
You've got 5 guys with 5 different looks, 5 different ideas, 5 different characters, but it worked. It's like when Guns N' Roses formed. Did they ever think that this would be something? But then you get into a room and you start jamming, and you realize the chemistry here is amazing. And that's what we have with the Inner Circle. And the best part is we have never once had a cross word with each other, never hit each other with our finish, never had any type of a Keystone Cop moment. And it's been almost a year now of this faction still being the top heel group, to where there's no reason to change it. There's no reason to add anybody or subtract anybody or replace anybody. And I can see us being a faction for years, almost like DX was. When DX became a thing, they were heels, then they turned baby faces, and they just kept going. I really see that for the Inner Circle, because once again, we've got a brand new guy in Jake Hager. He is not the guy that was Jack Swagger. Jack Swagger and Dean Ambrose are WWE products. Both of them sucked. When they left, both of them sucked, and now both of them are in AEW with a whole brand new mindset. Then you got Santana Ortiz. I'd only met once on my cruise. I don't watch a lot of wrestling, so I never really seen them. I'd heard a lot of good things about them. I met them on the cruise last year, watched maybe their match then. So when they were suggested, it was like, okay, well, I don't know them, but let's give it a try. And then Sammy Guevara, I actually helped bring into AEW when I watched him work an NWA show where Cody worked with Nick Aldis. And I watched the pay-per-view and I saw this Sammy Guevara. Who is this kid? he looks like a total dick. Like and he was miscast as a babyface with the panda head. I'm like, I hate this guy already, but he's supposed to be a good guy. Like, I would love to work with him. And so bringing him into the inner circle, bringing him to AEW was step one, bringing him into the inner circle was step two. And suddenly now we have all of these guys who are all way better than they were before, and me included. So I think it's a great mix where all of us are learning and improving and be way bigger stars now than we were on October 1st before the very first Dynamite.
Well, speaking of Dynamite, that's been going from strength to strength too. You're obviously the demo god, as we know, but we're hearing rumors now that NXT might be considering a switch, and USA have perhaps pitched it to WWE. Do you think that's good for both brands if you're on separate nights? What's your take on that?
I mean, why? I'm going to ask you one question. Why is NXT on Wednesday night?
I mean, I suppose the answer would be because Dynamite was
exactly. They came on Wednesday just to mess with us. Take your head out of your ass and go make money. Don't worry about our company. We're not worried about you. We don't have a screen up that shows what's going on every moment on NXT like they do watching Dynamite. Leave us alone. Do your own thing. Go to Tuesdays. Grab an extra 250,000 viewers. Finally get your demo where it needs to be, because it's pretty embarrassing on a Wednesday night up against us. The demo god thing is not a gimmick. It's real. So go to Tuesday, go to Sunday, go to any other day you want. But don't exist just to mess with us, because we're beating you every week. It's kind of embarrassing for NXT at this point. So I think you should throw the red flag, retreat, go to Tuesday, make Tuesday your night, make more money, get more viewers, get more guys over, and don't worry about what we're doing, because we're going to continue on either way, and we're winning every week anyways. So just go your own way. That's the best way to do it.
And let me ask you as well, in terms of creative, we talked about this earlier, how important it might be for you to be heard. Now, I'm an avid listener of your podcast, always have been. And I've heard you talk about, maybe you and Kevin Owens were meant to be for the title at one point, but then WWE plans change. Talk to me about working with Tony Khan and how that's different, how it's more of a collaboration, and there's not so many obstacles and you have more say, I guess.
I mean, Tony, one thing about Tony is he's very driven, and he's very passionate, and he knows what he wants. He's not a pushover in any way, shape, or form. I think that's kind of a misconception for a lot of people. Oh, it's Tony Khan. He's a money mark, and he doesn't know anything. He does know. He knows more about wrestling than I do, as far as the history and the dates and the matches and all that sort of stuff. I love working for Tony Khan because it's fresh, it's new. I loved working for Vince McMahon as well, but Vince is he's been doing it for 45 years. He knows, he's set in his ways of doing things, and they're very successful. Tony is still figuring out what way he wants to do things. We're learning all together. We're learning on the fly. I mean, we did a live TV show with 75% of the roster who had never been on live TV before. Who's going to produce the shows? Tony. Who's going to write the shows? All of us. Okay. Well, who's going to, direct the shows? Keith Mitchell, who's been doing this for 30 years. So we have a great group of people who are all doing this for the right reasons, because they love the business and they love this kind of brand new, brave new world that we're creating. So Tony to me is my boss. Obviously the buck stops with him, and I appreciate that and I enjoy it. You have to have a boss. I worked in companies where there was no boss. That never works. Tony Khan is the boss. I'm saying it right here. It's not the Young Bucks. It's not Kenny. It's not Cody. Tony calls the shots. He's got the final say, but he's very open to suggestions. I talk to Tony Khan every day about ideas for the show, about live shows or advertising or press or, action figures. And that's a really cool environment, because I'm getting a chance to use my 30 years of experience in a positive way, and not being kind of undermined because I'm just talent. I'm as much as part of the office as anybody is. And I think that's a lot of fun, and it's very challenging in a great way for me.
Well, speaking of your 30 years in the business, you've seen a hell of a lot of talent. And this Saturday, MJF might arrive as the world champion for AEW. What's your take on him? Do you think the time is now? And it's so intriguing, the dichotomy between himself and Moxley.
The time is always now for me. If Moxley wins, that's the way to go. If Max wins, that's the way to go. All that matters, once again, is we're building stars. And that's two guys. We're building Moxley as well. Who would have thought a year ago that goofy Dean Ambrose wearing a fucking mask before we had to wear masks because of the corona is now going to be a completely different guy, new name, new character, new attitude, new fan base, and that he's going to be our main event player. He's going to be our champion. Nobody would have guessed that. Nobody. And then MJF, who I believe is 23 years old, maybe 24. When I was 23 or 24, I was working flea markets, in Calgary in front of 50 people, just trying to make a name for myself. He's already made a name for himself at a main event level. The fact that MJF is in the main event already makes him a champion, because this show is going to do a great buy rate. And listen, we're all contributing, but I'm smart enough to know, and also been in the business long enough, that the main event is the money draw. If we draw 100,000 views or 150,000 views, that's because people wanted to see the main event. If we draw 20,000 views, that's because people didn't want to see the main event. Obviously, Mimosa Mayhem is a big part of it. Kenny and Hangman versus FTR, big part of that. Sammy and Matt and Sheeta and Thunder Rosa. There's a great list of warm-up acts. Yeah. But the main event, the headlining, is MJF versus Moxley. And the fact we've put him in that position, being MJF, means we have a lot of belief in him, and we're expecting him to draw money. And I think he will, at 23 years old.
Yeah, that's crazy to think about, to be fair. Yes, and I mean, one thing that I've always agreed with you on was your thoughts on Roman Reigns. You saying about how he should be more like himself and how WWE missed a trick, not letting him do that. What do you think about the recent turn he's had, from your perspective?
Don't have to say it again. I'm a huge fan of Roman Reigns. I think as a heel, he's going to leaps and bounds be better than as a baby face, which will then allow him to become a baby face, which will be leaps and bounds over him being a heel. I love Joe. He's a great worker. I love working with him. I probably worked with him, 40 times in 2016 and 17. We did house shows all around the world, live events all around the world. And he's got a great personality. If you would just let Roman Reigns be himself, he'll get over even more so. He's just he's the type of guy, he reminds me a lot of The Rock. He's the type of guy that if you're a guy, you want to have a beer with him. If you're a girl, you want to go on a date with him. But he doesn't get a chance to really show that. Just let him relax and be himself, and I have no doubt he can be the top star in WWE for sure, which he kind of already is, but to a point where everybody knows it and everybody agrees with it and nobody's complaining.